So I am pretty sure that most of you, if not all of you, already know the lock process. So I'm not going to go over the entire lock process and all the defaults and work order creation. I'm not going to go through all that because um, that's not the goal, at least of this webinar. I'm going to try to centralize this around some of our concerns and some of our thoughts and hopefully to get you thinking on kind of where this is going to end up after after all this is said and done and some sense of normality is restored and you guys start going back to your business as normal. Now, if if you don't currently use our lock services or shutoffs through inHANCE, let us know. We'll be glad to reach out to you and get some information on that. But understand that's not what I'm going to be going through today. I'm not going to be going from start to end on it. But I do want to touch on just a few defaults in our system. And the first one is going to be under UB administration, system information, and then down here under lock options. So this is the defaults on how our system handles or finds people who fall into a criteria set here for your for who needs to be set, who needs to be locked, who needs to be shut off, so on and so forth. The database that I have here, we have balances aged, or balances by age. So what this box does, if you hit the drop down, you can see all balances, all aged balances, only unbilled balances, less than 30 days, and then all your aging buckets as you go. I do want to stop and talk about this here and over here because these two go together. You'll see if I switch to 60 plus, it gives me 60 to 9999. If I do 80 to 89, then it reflects that here and here. Now, I can override this to be whatever range I want it to be. And if I do change this, then this box here is ignored and it just goes by what's here. So I want to touch on this for a second because for me this is a big topic, and I've actually got a question about it today from another customer. Was that so? Your penalties and your past due notices, those go off of the due date you set during your bill run. So any balances that are unpaid when the due date comes, those are now eligible to be penalized or, a second notice if it falls within your criteria for that. The aging days is a bit different. The aging days actually goes off of this box over here, the effective date. Now you can see the effective date and the due date are two different dates. This one is prior to this. So basically this is the day that the balances in the bill run, this bill run, start aging. So by the time the due date comes around, we're already 15 days aged for those balances on the bill. Now, this is where we have to pay attention to our default settings because we don't want to set this too low because it may actually pick up balances that are aging but actually aren't due yet. So we want to keep that in mind whenever we set your defaults up. But most of the time, I think the rule of thumb is this date is going to be whatever date you plan on putting these in the mail or sending them off to the printer or or whatever. This is the reason I wanted to really kind of stop and kind of hover on this for a minute is because when you guys do get back to some normalcy, and you start kind of getting back into a regular routine of work, you're going to have to determine who's eligible to be locked when you start locking again. Now, a there's a couple scenarios. One that I put forth was, I have John Smith. He's been a great customer for the last 5 years, and always paid on time. Maybe been late here and there, but by and large, he's a great payer. I don't have any concerns about John Smith. But during the beginning of all this, his company shut his doors. He got furloughed. He got laid off. Um, he hears that you guys are not going to be penalizing. You're not going to be locking. So he's still going to have water. He's got a family. He's trying to support his family. He starts uh, itemizing and prioritizing his bills on what he can and can't pay. Eventually, he ends up falling behind. Now, by the time you guys go to start lock again, you know, I guess one of the questions is, are we going to lock this guy or not? That's going to be a case by case basis, I think. Then you have the other people who work the system, right? So you have people who are, hey, I'm not going to get locked. I'm not going to get penalized. I'm going to fill up my pool, my neighbor's pool, and so, and they're not very good payers. They're whatever. But by the end of all this, we have to make a decision. We have to make a choice of who of what we're going to be locking for. Because my understanding, I think the majority of our customers, they aren't locking, or they aren't penalizing, or they're penalizing but they're not locking, or some variation of that. So that's primarily why we wanted to have this webinar. Is with penalties, it's fairly easy to say, well, we'll just mark all these balances penalized and we're good. Next time you penalize, all you have to worry about is the balances on this current bill. Well, this isn't quite like that, because you have to worry about aging. How far have those balances aged? Who are we going to lock? How are we going to handle those people who qualify to be locked, but we don't want to lock because for whatever reason they got furloughed, they got laid off, they've been a great payer, or they're a horrible payer and they've taken advantage of it, but we still need the money. Are we locking them? We're not locking them. Are we putting them on a pay plan, or how are we going to do this? So really, and Shaena, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the main purpose of this webinar was to kind of start getting those juices flowing on thought, and how you guys plan on handling it, and how we can help you, because again, this is a bit more malleable than, and has a few more factors in it than the penalties does.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Nathan. We want to find out from you guys what you are going to need, and then we will determine, just like we did with penalties, is there a certain way we can address this when you do go back to being normal, and what can we do, whether it's a script, whether it's just training, whether it's looking at each one of your organizations on an individual basis to come up with a plan on how to start getting back to normal and shutting people off. So what we need to find from you guys, those questions were really important. Just like Nathan is saying, these aging days could come into play, or should come into play. And then also, you've got the minimum balance that's on here. Nathan, were you going to be showing anything more?
This is really kind of all I wanted to touch on, at least for this, unless you want me to go ahead and do something else.
Nope, you're good. So Nathan has showed where we set that up at. So when you do use lock services, this is the setting it goes to. and it's pulling the list of customers based on this criteria. So what we'd like to do now, Nathan, were you going to be showing anything more?
This is really kind of all I wanted to touch on, at least for this, unless you want me to go ahead and do something else.
Nope, you're good. So Nathan has showed where we set that up at. So when you do use lock services, this is the setting it goes to, and it's pulling the list of customers based on this criteria. So what we'd like to do now, Kayla, I don't know if you can bring up the results of the poll.
Let's see right here. So the past due balances. Shaena, do you want to kind of go through the rules or?
Yeah, let's talk about these just a little bit. And if anybody wants to jump in and raise their hand if they want to talk about something or ask a question, as you can see that we're, everybody has a different type of rule here based on certain balances, past due balances. So I'm going to say that would have to do with a certain aging date. Um, we've got people who shut off every week. I think one of our biggest things that we would like to see is, are you doing this now? If you're not, which we assume everybody is not because of the rules that have been put in place, do you plan to go back to your normal? And so that's question 2. So it looks like yes, about 24% are. And then we've got about 18% that said, something other than their normal. And 6, no, we are not going back to the normal. So probably what we would like to do with our customers is kind of find out what is changing. If you're not going back to normal, then what is changing? If it's something other, does that mean that anybody who has accumulated a balance during those months that you have not been penalizing or shutting off, are you going to just want to exclude those balances from your shut-off process going forward? So those are some questions that you guys should be thinking about as organizations, and also starting to talk with us, customer support and PS, so we can help you come up with a plan and how to use the system to accomplish your goals to get back to normal. If you could, can we scroll down some more
Yes.
so we can see some? So the next section was question 3. Question 3. So if you guys did answer other, what exactly is the change? And so we see that, there's obviously you're going to have to go by whatever your government, or some of you are unsure of what's going to happen. And some don't even know if you're going to shut off the rest of the year. So these are great things for us to hear and see what we can do and we can help you guys out with. We did talk about in earlier webinars whether, we showed how to do payment plans. So one of the questions would be that's question 5. If you are not going to shut off, would you be utilizing the payment plans? So you guys, if you have never used payment plans before, or it would be totally new to you, we did have a webinar showing how to use it, but again, customer support and PS, we can, if you want to set up some times, we could talk to you, we could, do some training, make sure that you understand how to use payment plans, how to set them up, and how to go forward if that is an option that your organization is going to do. And then, of course,
as far down as I can go.
yeah, nope, that's great. The last one, we wanted to kind of get an idea from you all. We talked about penalties. We're starting to talk about shutoffs, payment plans, maybe other services to help you guys out if you can't print or you can't mail your bills out. We have services to help you. Other Harris or business units could help. But what are some other things that you guys are experiencing that you might need help with? So that's what that last question was. And so we'll go through those and make sure that we reach out to the ones that had certain certain topics that they would like to talk about. Go
And
ahead,
really
Shaena.
fast, I was kind of perusing some of the answers, and one of the answers is, you're not sure what to do, and you want to kind of hear what other utilities are thinking about doing. That is exactly why we made our Team Support COVID-19 customer forum. If you guys haven't had a chance to use it, we added a brand new link on whenever you go into your customer portal through the website. When it comes up to your homepage, there's a box that says, I think it says communication or customer. Ooh, I'll come back to that. I'll remember that after I stop sharing my screen. But that is just a perfect place for you guys to, like, if you have a question, jump into that customer communication and ask the question. And we really, I mean, that's just another way we're trying to help facilitate the conversation between our customers, because you guys who are actually using the product and having to make those decisions are at times a better source of information than we are, because we're really here to support the product, and you guys know how to support each other at times. And so that was just a little tie-in that definitely, if you have questions like that, that communication COVID for the customers is, I think, a really great. I think it's just called community on the screen.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I think we'd like to just take it to you guys and see, do you guys have questions? Do you you want to raise your hand, and we'd be happy to get you on and start trying to answer those questions, or see if anybody wants to talk about any kind of topic, or about the shutoffs that you're doing right now, or what you're planning on doing. And we do realize that things are going to change over the next couple months. So if something does come up over the next couple months, that it changes, whatever, again, please get a hold of us, guys.
Absolutely. And I definitely, the same way with penalties, we had our first webinar. We're still trying to figure out what you guys might need. And from that, we were able to come up with a COVID script. And then we revisited just to touch base, give a clear, information on what our procedure is right now and what can you expect from us. And I imagine probably here in another month, we will come back to, we got questions coming in. We will come back and cover this again, maybe once we have more information from you guys. So one question says, how can we receive more information about the online community tool? I will email you a link. It should be also included in the email where you signed up for this webinar. It should be near the end of the email. It shows a screenshot of what the screen looks like, and it kind of just shows you exactly where to find it. And once you click on it, basically it'll just look like it's a forum. So there'll be like a line where you add a question, and then people can all comment on it, and it's open to all of our inHANCE customers. So another question says, we've never used the feature to lock accounts. What is the purpose of locking an account?
The purpose of locking an account would be you can't get them to pay. You've tried everything to get them to pay, so you go out and you lock. Now this is locking the meter, right? So I think the majority of our customers do that. I know there's some that don't, but in our system, honestly, it doesn't do much aside from create work orders, marks them as locked, and there's a few things that you can set up around them being locked in our system, but it's not like you can't access the account. You can't do something on the account. It's not actually technically locking the account in our software. It is just marking them as you've gone out to their property and you've put a lock on their meter or turned their water off somehow.
And to get a little technical on that, because I hear our developers shouting in my head. It's not the account
Is it
itself that's
chatting or
being
is it
locked.
yelling? I'm sorry for talking over you.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's somewhere in between, but it's the service itself is getting locked. It's not the account. Now, the software used to have the ability to lock an account or a service location service. But it's a minor distinction there, but the service itself is being locked, and it's supposed to correspond with the real world where, you go out and put a padlock on a meter, or some people pull the meter out of the ground. So that's kind of basically what the locks services is all about.
Right. And again, it doesn't mean you can't do anything with the location or with the account or with the meter in the software. You can still access them. You can still take payments. You can still change information. It's more of just a indicator saying, hey, this guy is locked. There's even screen notifications that you can set where it will pop up on the screen that says this guy's locked. So it's pretty much just a visual cue, an indicator that the account location is locked, but it's more to represent what's actually happened in the real world.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't see any other questions, but again, we will just stick around for a little bit and see if there's any more questions that jump in. And again, we know that you may not have the answers at this point, but we really wanted to make sure that we got you guys thinking about, what the future might hold. I did get a response. So they said our area still has shelter in place, and they don't have a date as to when it will be lifted. So they're still in limbo, and it's hard for them to have an idea of what they want to do yet. Yeah, that's exactly what we are expecting from all of our customers at this point.
Yeah, the main thing that I think I want to make sure is that there's nothing you have to do to stop doing shutoffs aside from just stop going to lock services. As long as you're not running them, then you're fine. That's another thing I should have mentioned earlier is that where penalties will back up the due dates, right? So you have this large amount of money just stacking up as far as past due amounts, and then when you penalize it, it will kind of take all those past due balances. Lock services is similar, but not quite like that. Meaning, it's not like you have to run penalties to mark these balances as penalized. You don't have to run lock services. So it's just when you do start running lock services, that's when we're going to have to see what we need to do to help you guys out.
Yeah, and I just sent in another message that I got, or question. How long can you identify COVID delinquencies, and how long will payment priority impact them?
May need to get a clarification on that question. Yeah, I'd have to get more information on the question. I apologize. Unless someone else has insight where I don't.
Maybe what they're asking is there anything that we have that, so like we have someone that's delinquent, they're not getting penalties. Is there, once I guess they start repayment, will there be any sort of impact to the payment plan, or how they're getting?
Payment priority is different than the pay plan.
Okay.
The payment priority is pretty much the order in order that the money goes to, from oldest to newest, mostly. I don't foresee any impact there. I don't see a reason why there would be.
I did get a
Um,
follow-up just
okay,
whenever you're.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if you elect not to shut off or penalize the COVID balances, how is it tracked when the customer resumes payments?
To not penalize?
So let
How
me
is it
send this
tracked?
to you so you can read the message. It might
Yeah.
help you.
If you elect not to penalize, basically, let's say that I am not paying my bill. I know you can't shut me off. I know you're not going to penalize me at least during this time. So I'll just go, I'm not going to pay it. I'm going to go, do something else. But I'm still getting a bill every month or however often that you bill. Those past due balances will basically they'll stack up as far as if you don't do penalties, then at the end when you do penalties, I guess it also depends on how you guys are handling penalties in your area. I do know there's some people who just aren't doing penalties. We're not doing it. Once we can, we'll do it, and we'll do it for everything. And if that's the case, then I don't think you fall into this scenario. I think you're fine if you want to just not do penalties, and then once this is all over and you get the okay to do penalties, then whatever's there to penalize is eligible, and that's just how it is. We do have some customers like that. Some customers who want to be able to technically penalize the customer each month or each billing period, but not charge them any money because they don't want to. They don't want those balances to be penalizable during that time. Once you can penalize again. If you fall into the second criteria, basically, or second scenario, where you don't want all the penalizable balances during this time eligibly penalized, then if you don't run penalties, that's what's going to happen in the end. It's going to pick up all the balances that are past due and penalize all of them. Assuming it's not a zero balance when at the end there. But if you fall into the second scenario where we're just not running penalties, once we can, then whatever is there is fair game. Then you're fine to not run penalties. So I guess it depends on how your company is handled, is what the policy is right now for running penalties. Either running them or not running them.
And we don't really have anything that specifically marks this as, this time period as being the COVID-19 penalty, time frame. There's nothing in the system that does that.
Right.
The other scenario that we have for penalties is that we have some customers, I'm saying about half and half that I've spoken with, some of them aren't concerned with tracking who should have been penalized, money-wise, as far as having reports on that. And then we have the other half who is concerned with that. And we cover all of that in, when we talk to y'all on the scripts as far as what we have for the penalties, the penalty relief scripts and everything that we have.
Right.
But, there's, if you don't want to penalize, it's safer if you don't want to penalize right now at all. Even if you haven't spoken to us about the penalty scripts or you don't have anything in the works for that right now, just don't run the penalty process because we have a little bit of leeway on that as far as the time frame goes. And just get with us as soon as you can. Just put in a support ticket and we can get the $0 quote out to you and see what your situation is on that as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned this person. Apologize, I don't know who you are. You mentioned about the payment priority. That's not going to be any different unless you want it to be different. If it's untouched, it's going to pay the same way it has always paid. So, I mean, unless you need to change that, I caution changing that. Because those are usually set in a very specific way. If you feel like you do need to change your payment priority at the end of this for some reason, contact us and let us help you walk through it and make sure that that what needs to be changed is changed, and vice versa.
And then in the chat, we had two kind of questions from another person. They said if they aren't using the penalty script, when do they begin to lock the customers and run the penalties like normal?
Again, the penalties and locks. It's a bit of a small differentiation, but there is a differentiation, and the difference between the due dates and the effective dates. So while most of the time the same balances that are past due are also going to be the same balances, usually at least encompassed into what goes to be locked. It's a very important distinction to know that they are different in the fact that the locks does not go on due dates. Locks go on aged balances. Penalties go on due dates and not aged balances. So the penalty script will have nothing to do with locks as far as that goes, as far as what we're doing today on how to determine who needs to be locked, who are you going to lock, and so on and so forth. It's a small distinction, but it is a very important one.
And does that cover kind of what the follow-up part was, where she mentioned if they charge $10 for a late fee and not a percentage, at the end when they do want to apply the penalties, will it only add one fee for all the penalties?
Ask that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I sent it in the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, because I'm dealing with this now more. I think I'll just jump here and answer that real quick because so when you have a penalty, when you have a charge that is applied to an account that's in the reading maintenance screen, the penalty method that's associated with that charge is put on at that time. And of course, if you apply today, then those are definitely not past due right now. They become past due whenever the due date comes up and they haven't paid. So, but the beginning of the penalties start when you apply the charges. So if you have a penalty method, and we have several, I know this is probably not the forum for all of this, but if you have a penalty method that escalates to another penalty method, when you go back to start applying penalties, if you haven't run the scripts that we have for you, and you just haven't run penalties at all, it's only going to pick up that first penalty method that you have, and then it's going to escalate it for the second penalty method, which can then be run later. But as far as when you should start running penalties again and all of that, if you're using one of our scripts as far as the penalty release scripts, then we're going to work with you on that as far as specifically when you should start applying penalties again. There's a couple of different scenarios on that, but we'll let you know during the, when we're actually talking to you about those scripts. As far as a time frame, that's really up to your business and when your state or whatever ordinances you have as far as when you should start doing those again. But when you get down to the specifics, when you're talking about the penalty part of it, we can help you with that.
Excellent. Yeah, you answered it from what they responded to me. And just a thank you to both you, Nathan, and you, Chris. They did reach out. One of our customers did reach out and said that we're addressing the questions really well. So
Thank
we're
you.
glad you guys are very smart.
Chris is smarter than I am by far.
Is that Kayla? Kayla is, yes.
Yeah, you're smarter than almost everyone. It's terrifying. I can just talk people's ear off.
I only know the software.
Yep. I have to help them get dressed, so.
I have nothing to say to that. Only because I've worked with you guys. We will stick around a couple of seconds longer. If you guys don't know, Nathan and Chris are best friends. So, yeah, there's
Well,
a total bromance happening
that's in
there.
question now after today. So
Oh, you weren't supposed to tell the secret, Nathan. Yes. So if this answered your questions, if you guys feel good, feel free to jump off. Otherwise, we'll stick around and see if there's any more questions that pop up. Either way, we will include it in the recorded webinar. I'm convinced my daughter thinks all I do is joke around with people. Okay, I got another question. We are able to unlock multiple customers at the same time and not apply an unlock fee and create work orders? If yes, how is it done? And I'm going to go ahead and send it to you guys.
Yeah.
So are we able to?
Yes. In the same screen that I was in, under UB Administration System Information.
Do you have that screen up? Do you want me to give you
Yeah,
control?
go ahead and pass it to me again.
Awesome. I'm copying the question over really fast, so I apologize for that. Here we are. Send the question, and let me make you presenter. And guys, I absolutely love when we have, if we can just do anything to make this easier or provide something that you didn't think about. Absolutely. We love it.
So under UB Administration, System Information, and then Groups and Incomes tab, again, choose your group, go to Lock Options. Right over here, you have a default lock adjustment and a default unlock adjustment. This is where the charge, or I'll say charge, an adjustment is placed on the account when you lock and when you unlock. So if there's two ways to do it. I think the easiest way would be to come into this screen and just delete it out. So if I just choose any kind of adjustment code here, if I come and hit delete, it deletes it from there, save it, and that will no longer charge the adjustment when you unlock and save. And same thing for the locks.
no, that's the way that I would do it there. That's probably the easiest way to keep that from happening.
The other way is a bit more tedious. When you go to lock services, you can actually go to each one that you unlocked, or you want to unlock, and just take the adjustment code out of each one. That would be a lot more work, but you can do it that way.
So, yeah, I guess it's 2:02. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. If you guys have any additional questions, shoot it to us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust.
Yes.
Stay
Thank you,
safe
guys.
and healthy. All right. Let me pause the recording, and then I'll log out.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.